Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Laura. I'm here from Melbourne, Florida, from Natural Approach Wellness Center. Today I wanted to do a short video on what acupuncture is. Every time I see a new patient, I always ask them to tell me what they think about acupuncture, what they know about acupuncture, and a common response I get is that it's all about needles. And although that is correct, there's so much more to acupuncture than just sticking needles. So I wanted to do a short video explaining some basic stuff about acupuncture so you know a little bit more about really how truly amazing it is. It has been around for around 3,000 to 5,000 years. And in my opinion, a medicine that has lasted that long and is still around has totally and truly has stood the test of time. So not only has it been around forever, but in Chinese medicine that they had discovered these pathways called the meridians. So this is kind of like an example of the acupuncture pathways. These were mapped out many thousands of years ago, like I mentioned. And the idea is that these pathways go up and down the body to every cell, every tissue, every organ, every muscle, everything in the body. And it's actually found between the circulatory and the nervous system. And the idea is that if these pathways are not flowing properly and they become stagnant, then that's when we have a problem. So that's when we put needles in, but I'll get to that in just a second. I always get asked, how do these pathways become blocked? So there are three things that can cause stagnation in these pathways. One of them is physical things, which would include trauma. That could be a car accident or just wear and tear or doing something over and over again, playing sports or anything like that. Another thing can be emotions. If we're stuck in an emotion for a very long period of time, that can also cause some kind of stagnation in specific meridians. And the last thing that can cause imbalances in these meridians is chemical things, such as prescription medication, anything that has chemicals, not eating enough fruits and vegetables, our foods can be toxic, anything like that that can cause any type of chemical reaction in our body can also cause stagnation. So these are the three things that primarily cause imbalances in our meridians. So this is where the needles come in. As an acupuncturist, after we do our full diagnosis, we figure out which meridians are out of balance, and then we insert needles in specific points along these pathways in order to create a balance. And once we block them and get proper circulation, then the body has the ability to start healing itself. Because we're not really doing anything to the body other than allowing the body to heal itself by removing these blockages. And the way we figure out which meridians are blocked are by doing a Chinese examination. And that is by far one of the coolest things that we do in my practice, or in all practices in Chinese medicine. So that entails, when a patient comes in, the Chinese medicine examination entails looking at the tongue. In Chinese medicine, when we look at the tongue, we're looking at the environment of our insides. So we're looking for color. If it's very pale, that means that you may have some kind of anemia or blood deficiency, some kind of weakness. If we see the coating, if the coating is gone, that means something. If the coating is very thick, that also tells us something. Most of the time it's just because your stomach is not digesting properly. If it's very, very dark, that means that there's some kind of blood stagnation. Pretty much when we look at all the things that are on the tongue, specific areas also tells us which meridian may be in trouble. Another thing we do for diagnosing is we take the pulse. In Chinese medicine, there's 3 pulses in each side, and each one relates to the 2 meridians and concluding to 12 meridians. There is 14 meridians in the body, but 12 of them actually represent themselves in the pulses. And that is one of the most impressive things that I find in Chinese medicine. It's the fact that we can take someone's pulses and we can tell a patient what's wrong with them without them telling us what's wrong with them. That's how amazing the body is and how amazing this diagnosis is. Something else that we do is we look at the outside of the ear. The whole ear represents the whole body. And that's a little bit different than the pulse, because the pulse is more like a current view of what's going on to your body, but the ear is actually a history. So that can also tell us something that's happened in the past. I had a patient once, and I found something wrong with her clavicle or some kind of injury. And she told me that there was nothing wrong with it and she had never suffered any, injury or trauma. But then when she went back home, she had asked her mom, and her mom says she has some kind of injury when she was little to her clavicle. So it's kind of pretty neat how the body can actually hold on to that history even though years have passed. The 3 things we do in practice in order to figure out which meridians are out of balance and how we're going to bring them back to balance. So we look at the pulse, we look at the tongue, and we look at the ear. And that's when we figure out, again, which meridians we're going to treat in order to get the results that we are looking for. Hope you have found that informative. So acupuncture is about sticking needles in specific points, but there's so much more to it. If we can help you in any way, please visit our website at mynaturalapproach.com.